Hello there, everybody, and thanks for joining this another exciting webinar that we're doing here at Photograph. This time together with Eskimi and Gabriela, representing Eskimi, around leveraging the power of data. We're going to talk about more on the accuracy front, more around data collection, and then the reporting, something that we sort of specialize in here at Photograph. A bit about myself. So I'm Frank Sanders here at Photograph, looking after our client partnerships around the world with various clients, literally all around the world, whether that's in the US, Europe, in Asia Pacific, and a place like Australia, Japan, etc. You name it. A bit about me. So I've been in this company for 6 months. My previous background sort of comes from places like Google, SimilarWeb, machine learning space. So all of the companies I've been around have to do something with data, with accuracy, with targeting, first-party data, third-party data, and that's exactly why I think this area is really interesting. And there are multiple changes happening also this year, which is why I think it's interesting to also kind of dive more into this particular topic. And there's no one better, I think, to invite in the space from our kind of neighbors around the quarter, such as Eskimi. So over to you, Gabriela.
Thank you, Frank. So yeah, hello everybody. I'm Gabriela. I'm the product manager at Eskimi. I'm currently leading DMP, which is Data Management Platform product. I'm working in programmatic landscape for 3 years now, but leading the product only for a few months. However, I definitely think that data is an amazing tool, and I'm trying to move to scale our DMP in Africa, Asia, Middle East, Latin America. So really a global scale. So yeah, hoping that you will enjoy this webinar and you will get to know not only Photograph, but Eskimi, and yeah, you will learn a lot of new things.
Fantastic. Yeah, throughout the webinar, feel free to drop in any questions into the Q&A that we will answer at the end of the webinar. So don't shy away, whatever the question is. We would love to wrestle with that. And either myself or Gabriela will take it and answer to our best of our ability. If we're unable to do so, or if there's too many questions, then we'll definitely follow up with you. So yeah. So more on Eskimi, or Eskimi rather.
Yeah, so Eskimi is a programmatic platform with a global reach. Our core strengths are local data and so what we do, we enable advertisers to use unique rich media solutions and to reach relevant users. We're integrated with over 45 different exchanges that provide us the supply to cover the demand that our clients have. And when it comes to clients, we are currently working with more than 500 clients worldwide. So as you can see, we're working with the really known local and global brands like Coca-Cola, Nokia, Kia, so you just name it. So yeah, and we're operating in over 120 countries, but our core regions are Africa, Asia, Middle East, East Europe, Latin America, and so on. So yeah, this is short about Eskimi.
And as Eskimi as a business, how long have you been around?
Already 15 years.
Wow, nice. So on that regard, Photograph has been only around the block for about 6 years. So it does feel like Eskimi is more of a dinosaur in comparison to us. So yeah, also kind of swiftly about Photograph. So Photograph as a business, so we're like a full stack marketing solution. Our job is to really scoop up all the data there is on the web, whether that's the DSPs, the DMPs, Google, Facebook, you name it. Variety of data sources that are available, also including email automation platforms, whether that's Klaviyo, MailChimp, call tracking, TikToks, whatever the source is, we're looking to aggregate all of that data, beautifully visualize that data, relatively sort of real time with 15-minute refresh rate. And then as an output, that essentially comes in form of live dashboards or PDF reports. So like really fully automating and ensuring that nobody spends that repetitive task on a weekly or monthly basis, providing what's the ROI, behind the various marketing efforts. And in terms of the reports that we sort of send out, or dashboards we send out, would be currently to over 15,000 various brands around the world. We do work heavily with agencies and then somewhat also with brands as well. And the product is constantly developing. European-based business, but yeah, all scattered around the world when it comes to our clientele. So here in particular, we will start with Gabriela talking more about data and the accuracy. So I'm just giving the mouse over to you, Gabriela. Yeah, you can. I think you're controlling the screen already. So, so we lost your mic as well. Here you go. You're back.
Yep. Sorry about the technical difficulties. So yeah, let's start from the basics. So what is data? In general, data is a set of values about one or more persons. When it comes to digital advertising or programmatic advertising, there are few types of data that everybody knows and uses. Data can be categorized more as based on the ownership. So let's start first from the first party data. So first party data is information that as an advertiser, you collect directly from your audience or your customers. This can be behavior activities from your website, social media data, subscriber data, and so on. Second, first party data is super valuable and is cost effective while second party data is essentially someone else's first party data. It is the same as first party data. It can be collected from a website or an app, or it can be shared by the user themselves through an email sign up or even the purchase. And when it comes to third party data, this is a data that is collected by a large aggregator. They collect it from different companies and websites. Third party data is great when it comes to scale. And these are the main types of data that are most common in digital advertising. And when it comes to the goal itself of data, it is quite simple. It actually enables advertisers to find the most suitable audience among billions of ad impressions and thus significantly increase the effectiveness of the advertising.
And I guess at Eskimi, you capture all three types of data, right? So
yes,
the first, the second, and third party data.
So at Eskimi, what we enable is advertisers can upload their first party data, or they can implement our audience pixel and collect the first party data from their website through a small pixel. And of course, we have with the DMP, we enable advertisers to use third party data so they can target a rich variety of users and actually in a large scale. So yeah. And now we know what is data, but the core thing is to understand what segments are we talking about. So data can be from demographical data like gender and age, and it can narrow down to such information about your interest, location, what even operator or device you're using. So the segments really depends from one platform to another. But in general, these are like the core segments that the majority of the platforms provide. When it comes to Eskimi, we provide the advertised opportunity to target users based on starting from demographics to device to interest, location. So there's a rich variety of targeting that actually enables advertisers to reach their goals with the data that we have. So, and the question stands, how this data is collected. I briefly talked when I presented the data, but still let's check again. So first party data can be collected through a pixel that can be implemented in the website. Of course, advertisers can use CRM systems or collect first-party data through a sign-up, purchase on the web, and etc. So this is how first-party data is collected. Second-party data is collected the same way as first-party data, while third-party data is collected by a data aggregator that pulls from for some reason. Sorry. For some reason I cannot. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, and third-party data is collected by data aggregators that pulls it from various platforms and websites. They are collecting first-party data, but they're selling it as third-party data. They're collecting the data, they're adding everything into different segments and enable and give it to advertisers to use on platforms like Eskimi, for example. And yeah, now we know what is data, how it is collected. The question stands, why data is even relevant in digital advertising, programmatic advertising, and how it can be actionable. So there are core things that I would like to touch upon, but definitely there are more reasons why data is relevant. So naturally, data can increase the precision of targeting. So the brand doesn't need to target broadly. They can actually reach really niche audience that can benefit their brand and reach a concrete goal. Then brands at Eskimi or any other platform, they can discover new audiences that they never thought that these users would be interested in their brand. With the third-party data that we provide on our platform, brands can expand their first-party data and reach users in high scale. And it's not only about the targeting, but it's really about the relationship that you can build and increase user experience, because by targeting relevant people, you can show them ads that would be personalized, that would resonate with their gender or their interests. So it helps you as a brand to create that long-term relationship with your customers and your audience. And of course, data can help advertisers to target users during different customer funnels. So you can definitely show different, we know ourselves that you cannot show the same communication to a customer that just started to know your brand and the same communication to your already loyal customer. So data enables you to target these users and to show them relevant ads based on their different data segments. And yeah, but we see that data can actually help to build a relationship can enable advertisers to reach relevant people. However, for the past few years, data comes with a clear challenge, which is privacy. So what it means that users don't know where their data is used, who is using it, how they're using it, and naturally for a brand, it can harm the relationship with the client. It can just create a lack of trust from your consumers, from your customers. And what is now happening in the market, in the whole digital landscape, there are a few areas that are, I guess, the hottest ones. So big governments and countries are launching legal documents like Gdpr in Europe, CCPA in California, and LGPD in Brazil. These documents inform how companies can collect data and use it. So it gives a clear regulation how in these regions you can monetize the data. The second regulation is the newest iOS 14.5 version, which which enables user to opt in for data collection. So if you would visit an app, you will get a pop-up that would ask, do you want your data to be collected? And you can opt in or opt out. And of course, the third would be Chrome will deprecate third-party cookies by 2022. So it means that there won't be an opportunity to use targeting frequency cap on Chrome and the websites that you are visiting through Chrome. And at Eskimi, as any advertising platform, these changes definitely impact how we are working and how we are approaching our clients. So we are fully GDPR compliant. So it means that advertisers can safely target users by and complying with the laws of Europe. When it comes to iOS 14.5, we're giving clients the knowledge and understanding what is happening in the market, what is the adoption rate of this new operating system. And when it comes to third-party cookies, so we will onboard different identity providers. So it should help to tackle brands, our customers, the third-party cookie deprecation. And yeah, and now we know what is data, how it is collected, what are even the challenges and regulations around data. But the question is how to make it actionable. And one of the great ways how to do it is to follow the analytics. So what it means, it means that you have to look at reports, analytical graphs to understand what advertising activities you should do next. You should target one audience group or another one. And as an advertising platform, we have our own internal reporting system that enables our clients to make better advertising decisions in the future. While now I would like to invite Frank to present, to dig deeper and to present the analytical part of the data.
Appreciate it, Gabriela. That was a really good insight into first party, second party, and third party. I think on the second party data, that's relatively still new, or it's in its nascency, just generally around the ad tech ecosystem. Looking at the iOS 14 changes, I think Google also follows suit. Eventually, they are pressured to do so. Some of you may have seen on LinkedIn some of the articles that where Google is mentioning that's something they're considering to do so later this year. So meaning the whole landscape, just generally changing. It will make it significantly harder for advertisers to be making their ads more relevant. And I think the creative copy is definitely paramount going forward. keywords. So just like Gabriela was mentioning, whether that's within Eskimi or any platform, whether that's Google Ads, Facebook, etc., there's naturally UI. There's an interface. So if you think about your browser, whether it's a Chrome or whatever you're using today, you have multiple tabs for each of the tabs. Naturally, there's an interface, and it becomes quite difficult to understand sort of what's happening. So naturally, marketeers, when kind of Facebook arose and many others, then platforms popped up over the years, they started to download that data in the form of Excel, Google Sheets, and then they start to build various graphs. Then along the way, sort of 6 years ago or so, Watergraph, was born as an example to tackle that exactly issue, to automate that process. Then Data Studio also followed a year later as well on the same front. So this is always a funny thing. I always say the Data Studio was actually followed after Watergraph. And yeah, so so people were pulling manually, and still a lot of companies are pulling manually. So just give me a second there. Just on in terms of remote. Here we go. So apologies on that front. Here we go, and going back. In me as well. So I also have some issues. Here we go. Going back, even though being a technical companies, we all face some sort of issues all the time. It always happens, even to me. So yeah, over the years, automation arose, right, in different various places. And I think specifically around sort of report building, Watergraph and also many companies came into the space to tackle those various channels that sort of arose, and you need to kind of see that little bit digital bird's eye view. So automation is definitely the way to tackle those repetitive tasks, because essentially building reports doesn't actually make you any money, whether you're a brand or an agency, and that's not something necessarily that's always enjoyable for everybody, right? So, and building reports and making them look nice is just definitely a heavy lift. So, and to do so, naturally, you're not just pulling your first party or second party or third party data, through all these tabs that you may have in your Chrome browser. Having that in one kind of viewpoint is really important. And the reason for that would be, you may think that, say, you as a brand, you grow, let's say, 20% quarter over quarter. But by looking sort of at the third-party data, say that's Ahrefs or SEMrush, so some of the integrations that we have here at Watergraph, the rest of the market may be growing sort of a 30 or 40 or 50%, right? So it's also important how you perform versus the rest of the market that there is, right? So I would say the digital ecosystem is definitely growing year on year. So it's not that you as a brand you're growing. Others are also chasing the same users out there on the web, whether it's on Google and Facebook. And somebody may be doing better than you. So having that sort of 360-degree overview of what's actually happening within the business or across various metrics, whether that's sessions, impressions, whatever, those platforms and the metrics you can pull from them, you want to understand what's your share of voice in the market, right? So is it increasing a quarter over a quarter or not? And so there's a lot of material out on the web around this topic, and I highly advise to invest into this area because that's exactly what, for example, we here at Watergraph do. We want to make sure that we also quite significantly increase our market share as we progress through the quarters. So having that digital bird's eye view is paramount, right? So what that means is pulling all those channels. So whether that's Eskimi data, whether that's Google Analytics data, whether that's any other data, Shopify data, you name it, into a single place. So to understand holistically across all of these systems that there are and the platforms that there are, what is actually happening, and pulling in the right naturally metrics. Whether here, just a few examples, what's the bounce rate, on our site on one property. So let's say for Coca-Cola, and we have a domain or a website in every single market. We want to be, when we pull that data, let's say from GA, understanding what's the bounce rate on different markets, right? So having that sort of in a single view. Same, across the number of sessions or average time on site. When it comes to sort of data from sort of various sort of ads platforms, you want to be pulling in all the impression data, click data, conversion data to kind of have that digital bird's eye view. And when you're pulling that data naturally into a single platform, it's important to work towards the goal. Because naturally there's macro goals in place. So let's say you may have goals for the whole business that you're kind of chasing, and that's exactly why on a quarterly or yearly basis you want to be sort of chasing that, and that's what we enable on a daily basis to do so. Here's just some examples around what is clicks, the money that we spend in terms of advertising, right? So we let's say have a budget of 5K, and how we're kind of pacing against the timeline. We're overpacing or underpacing in terms of the amount of money that we have spent, and should be spending more if the performance is really great at that exact moment, right? So setting goals is important. I think in a lot of cases, still I see in the landscape and sort of talking to various prospects and clients that not always the goals are being set. If the business is doing okay without any goals in place, then it's fine. The leads are coming in or the purchases are being made, it's all good. But still ensuring that you set goals at the beginning of the month or beginning of the quarter or the year is really paramount, and advise highly to do so across all the channels essentially rather than a single channel. So, and then last but not least, once that data is being assembled, naturally it's important to ensure that data is being distributed. So what I mean, data being assembled into sort of a form of a report or a dashboard, that's sort of the, the process that happens after the data has been sort of kind of connected to places, let's say like Autograph or Data Studio, etc. So you want to make sure that after that report has been built and it has been assembled to drag and drop functionality, data blending capabilities, and sort of combining various metrics from different channel sources. You want to also make sure that that report is beautiful at the end of the day, and that gets distributed to various sort of stakeholders, and certainly within the company, or let's say if you're an agency, that gets distributed to various brands out there. So there's a lot of unsavvy folks that may not necessarily comprehend the marketing data. And this is what we are here at Autograph excel at that, making sure it's not just looks beautiful, but it's also understandable in terms of for all the money that we spend in various sort of advertising ecosystems, what's the return on that, right? So naturally, that data can be either automated in terms of the reports. When we build those reports, we can save that as a template. We can send report links to sort of live dashboards to understand how the performance is looking like today with the 15-minute refresh rate. Looking at that at the big screen, TV screen in the office, if we're all going back, especially here at Autograph, we are. Also downloading kind of PDF reports from the platform, right? So it's important to not just be building various reports, charts, etc., but also to ensure that the most important stakeholders, whether this is C-suite or other stakeholders, are being informed, on a regular basis, how the money is, say, being spent, right, and how the business is performing digitally. And yeah, so that's it overall, just on the reporting front. So I covered the base. I didn't go into too much detail. Here, it's important to be asking questions in the Q&A. So I think we already got a question. So let me go into that. Actually, there's quite a few questions there. I'm just checking now. So a very kind of standard question, are we going to have a copy of the presentation or the recording? Yes, there will be a copy, whether it will be sent as a follow-up, or you can check out the YouTube channel of autograph.com. There's a live stream going on there right now. In terms of other questions that there are from the audience, so one of the things that I'm seeing here, so maybe this is a question more for you, Gabriel. So what are the challenges that you may foresee from the kind of the big tech firms? So let's say Google or Apple. So we've seen the iOS 14.5, update, and that's impacting naturally everybody, including yourself. Do you foresee? So I already mentioned the Google's probably following suit, but any other challenges or any other trends you may foresee sort of till the end of the year, I guess?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Definitely these companies will regulate the data collection, and more and more these big companies are becoming walled gardens when they're safeguarding their data and they're just like a mini monopoly. So this is going to happen with the major companies. We are seeing this on Facebook, Amazon. So yeah, and Google followed the Apple, and from 2022 on Android, users will be able to opt out from the targeting, from the tracking of the data. So yeah.
So I guess everybody's following the European way of where you need to have explicit consent to be tracked, and that will be the new norm going forward. And something that reminds me, one of the other webinars we had the European Commission as well in play. So just looking into then the other questions that we're getting from the audience. So one other question that I'm just getting right now is, can Scheme data be integrated into Watergraph? That's probably something that I can answer. So currently we don't have a native integration in place with the Scheme. That's something we're looking into later this year on developing. So currently the way that Scheme data, as an example, could be ingested if there's no native API integration would be via custom API that could be utilized by Watergraph, or uploading the data, say, into a Google Sheet, and that Google Sheet will be connected to Watergraph. That will be in sort of a couple ways that could be worked around. But generally, so on Watergraph front, there's over 40 integrations that there's a native sort of link has been built. Literally within a few clicks, you could be pulling the data. And then naturally, because there's like hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of platforms out there where you could be pulling the data via API, then, there's those kind of workarounds that I usually mention. But yeah, we're constantly, building out new integrations, and I bet this Scheme will be also soon on its way as well. So if there's any requests from the audience requiring that, please do send them that request my way. So we do know that you would also love to have that integration of the bridge in place, and we'll look into that for sure.
Yeah, I hope that we will definitely have this integration, and we will bring Watergraph to the regions that we operate. So it will be a really nice collaboration.
Yeah. The other question that we're just getting here is, how does Watergraph identify whether a user has seen the ad or not? So Watergraph in itself doesn't track the data. So the data that's being tracked is usually by the platforms that we integrate with. So say if a user saw an ad on Facebook, as an example, has clicked through the ads onto the site, then that's being tracked by Facebook. And then we would utilize the Facebook's API from that particular account, and we'll be pulling that data into Watergraph. So generally speaking, Watergraph doesn't store any data. It simply processes the data that belongs to the brands or to the agencies, so that they have access to that data, and they simply want to visualize that in a place. So they do so. We process that data. So yeah, that would be the answer. And that kind of leads on to the other question here that I'm seeing in the Q&A, whether GDPR would impact Watergraph in any way, because we're data, you could say we are a data platform, which we are for sure, because we aggregate a lot of that data. So when we pull that data from different places, we don't store that data. So we simply would be what we call a data processor, if we would use the GDPR sort of language here. And as a data processor, we simply process the data on behalf of our partners. So what that means is when somebody looks at the dashboard, say of their own data, we would fetch that data in real time via API, and would display that data instantly. And what that means is we don't have to store that data, because we simply have fetched it, and that's it. If Watergraph has been then closed down as a platform through the X, then we haven't stored that data, because we don't need to store that data. And that is really, I guess, important in countries such as Germany, where there definitely privacy laws are very, very strict, and many other countries, right, that they're also introducing stricter privacy laws. So that just helps us as well, just to ensure we're kind of safeguarded on that front. Yeah, so that's that. Just looking here at other questions. Let me just quickly have a look. So the other questions here that's just popping up into the chat would be, what would be the most sort of suitable brands for when it comes to working with Scheme? So what are the brands, I guess, or maybe, I guess, verticals? We probably here's more the question that would be best suited for Scheme and the targeting that you're offering with your DMP.
Yeah, that's really good question. So our primary ISPs would be FMCGs, telcos, retails, and device manufacturers. And when it comes to the whole data and targeting, we usually focus brands that are more looking into KPIs like brand awareness, traffic generation, etc. So this would be like brands that are focusing to these KPIs. Definitely, this Eskimi would be a great platform to use and for us to help the brands reach the goals.
Fantastic. And then looking here, another question here, just looking at which one to choose. So let's answer this one. This is probably a question more for me. So just looking at the kind of data reporting landscape and the direction that it's moving, what is the impact that you foresee? I guess that's addressed at me. So here the impact, when we're looking at, generally data aggregation and reporting, I think this sort of niche will generally grow. The reason for that would be that more and more advertising players evolve and pop up. So one of the examples would be TikTok, right? So I would say TikTok wasn't a thing sort of 5 years ago, right? Now it's really big, right? And that will happen more and more so as we progress, over the years. There will be other platforms, I bet, that will be going to be on addressing different specific user needs. And naturally, with all of those platforms appearing around the world, there's a sort of necessity, like organic kind of growth that we're going to see here for Watergraph and the product. So we believe the need for something like Watergraph will just become bigger and bigger and bigger organically without us doing anything. And I believe that's quite normal because not everybody wants to sit around, I guess, in Facebook just, right? Some of the, users or populations are like in places like Snapchat, TikTok, etc., right? And so from a brand standpoint, you want to be there there where your audience is, right? So this is why a lot of sort of brands start to appear in places like TikTok, right? Because they want to capture that younger generation, that creative generation, and have the marketing teams working really hard on those creative assets, right, within TikToks. And because, you look at the various different brands, how quickly they build that follower base, right? And again, that requires then to track, how that increase in the follow base then impacts your sort of sessions on your site, conversions, etc. Right? So this is why it's really paramount when it comes to platforms like Watergraph to be integrating. And I think there will be more and more players, generally speaking, going into the future. So that will be something that we foresee. I'm not sure really what's coming, but I was expecting the unexpected. So I didn't expect, somebody like TikTok coming to play. I would say that the expectation was that Instagram or maybe somebody else that would really be solid sort of on the video engagement front. But that's not the case. And now I would say Facebook definitely has a hard time with fighting TikTok in the space when it comes to ad dollars. And also recently, yesterday I read that TikTok is the most downloadable app right now, as an example, and that just shows that new players can emerge and be successful, and that's pretty much in every space, really, right? So nobody has thought that, say, Tesla would be the next big thing, sort of a decade ago or something. But it's definitely big, and so various industries change, whether that's advertising, or whatever the industry is. So yeah. If there's no other questions then from the audience, there's a few more that we will take offline and follow up here. But I would say thank you so much, Gabriela, for joining this particular session. This webinar can be found on Watergraph's YouTube channel, so feel free to check it out. There'll be a follow-up also after this webinar, whether that's by Eskimi or ourselves, if you want to be introduced to the platform. Otherwise, I appreciate everybody for joining in the webinar, and wishing you the great rest of the day wherever you are in the world.
Thank you, Frank, for inviting that